To order the meeting of the Green Bay Traffic, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Commission meeting for Monday, June 15th, 2020. Down to item number B, roll call. Members, Chairman Keepers here, Vice Chairman Dan. You want to mark him accordingly then, Dave?
Yes.
Okay. Alderman Craig Stevens.
Here.
Lieutenant Brad Struth.
Present.
Present. Commissioner Reardon, Bridget Reardon.
Present.
And Commissioner Ray Smith.
Here.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to agenda item C, approval of the agenda. Approval of Monday, June 15, 2020. Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Approval of the minutes of the Monday, May 18th Traffic, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Commission meeting minutes. Have a
Second.
motion made for May's meeting. Seconded. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. E on the regular business. Item 1, postpone from prior meeting consideration with possible action on the request for Alvin Galvin to remove parking restrictions in the 600 block of South Urban Avenue and the 1200 block of Cass Street that applied to the former St. Mary of the Angels Catholic School. No Alderman Galvin tonight, or have you conversed with him on this topic or on this agenda item, Dave?
Yes, I have. And I asked him, and he said he was going to attend, but I'm presuming since it's getting close to 10 after that, he's running late or something else came up. But I do have some updates for you because I know he's coming from now on his request. So he did get clarification. Would you like me to move forward with that?
Yes, please do.
Okay. I did receive an email from Bill, who had talked with the requester on the phone. So apparently there's not enough room in front of the school for all the staff, even the way it exists, as I explained it at the last meeting. And as the alder had stated, that the back lot is controlled by Bellin Hospital for their staff, and there's no room in there for school staff. And the hours that they work are, they have regular full-time jobs there, so it's 8+ hours per weekday, and that the 4-hour area is really the only available area for them to park, but it's just not long enough. So his request is for the 4-hour zone, which is on the south side of Cass Street. You might want to look at the images that I had put in the packet. I have a map that shows the different zones of the area. But Cass Street west of Irwin, on its south side, you'll see highlighted in yellow. That is actually a 4-hour zone, and that extends all the way west to Irwin, or to Roosevelt, sorry. It's that entire block. And then once you get past Roosevelt towards the hospital, then it all becomes residential permit parking. So it's the request of the alder to remove the 4-hour 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Restriction that's existing on Cass Street. From a staff perspective, we don't really have an issue with that request or that position. We're simply looking at it from an engineering perspective of, can the roadway accommodate not only the parkers, but is it still safe for two-way traffic on Cass Street, east and westbound? And the answer is yes. So we don't really have a concern. The only thing I would bring up is that these zones obviously went in for a reason, the 4-hour zones, and that was to prohibit some of the business and hospital employee parking that was taking place. So, and I think over the years, we've seen what's happened with the construction of these various lots, ancillary lots that they get shelled in, the parking structure, that they've made good attempts to get this all resolved. So I don't know if the 4 hours even needed anymore. I really don't know. But I'm going to trust the alderman's position on this one, that he's taken his due diligence in contacting the bill. If that's his request, I have no reason to not support it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move approval of this request.
Okay, motion been made. Do I hear a second then?
Second.
Motion in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Good to hear your voice, Dan. Two, referred.
You're lucky you're not seeing my picture. That's for you.
All right, we'll leave it at that. We won't go any further with that comment. Two, referred back from Common Council to remove the no parking zone on the east side of Broadway from a point 10 feet north of Kellogg Street to a point 50 feet south of Kellogg Street.
Can I interject real quick, Chair?
Sure.
Items 2 through 7 are all related to the same item, which is the construction of Kellogg Street as part of the rail yard development. So I think really the discussion is on item, let's see, it's item 5 is really the item that's, I guess, where the primary discussion should be taking place, but they are all interconnected. So whatever happens as a result of tonight's meeting, there would be some adjustments probably to many of these items, but that's the primary item there. So this was pulled at council from Alder Johnson, and I did see that Alder Johnson is on the Zoom meeting, so I would make a recommendation that we let the Alder speak on behalf of these items.
Yes, please go right ahead, Alderman Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. So I reached out to Dave today, and we had a really good conversation around what my concern in this particular area. So to sum it up, essentially what we were looking at is on where Kellogg intersects Broadway. What was initially in place was the removal of 3 parking stalls south of Kellogg and 3 parking stalls north of Kellogg. Now, after conversing with staff earlier today, it sounds like the sign on the south end of Kellogg was initially misplaced, and so they've repositioned that last week that allowed the recapture of one of those parking stalls. And so that would, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, I actually went out and measured some things, but when you say 70 feet south of Kellogg, is that from the end of the stall to the curb of Kellogg?
The measurement that we use for the ordinance books, that 70 feet would be from where you see that white mark next to the 2-hour sign. I mean, actually the sign post is what we use as, in this case, it would be the southerly border. And then the northern edge of that measurement would be if you would extend the face of curb of South Kellogg Street towards Broadway. So, you have the radius where the curb ramps are for pedestrians to enter. But if you would extend that south curb line west, and then where it would intersect the east curb face of Broadway, that's the northern point. So it's actually probably maybe a little longer than you measured.
Got it. So I went to the curb, and that number was in fact 70 feet. So that to the curb. So if, from what you're saying, it sounds like we'd actually even have a little bit of a buffer in there, which is good.
Okay.
So after this conversation, really where my concern was raised is just the loss of 6 parking stalls in a downtown urban setting, particularly in an area that is about to see a lot of expansion. And so we had a great conversation about needs right now versus needs maybe a year from now or 2 years from now, and some of the options we have in the future to reassess this particular modification. After Dave and I finished our call today, I went out and I took those measurements, and the measurements for the south of Kellogg kind of lined up with where the signage is right now. However, on the north side of Kellogg, when I took a measurement for the parking stall was to the curb, it is 105 feet. And what I'm seeing in the ordinance request is that it's 85 feet. So by my math, that suggest to release one additional parking stall based on where the no parking signage was put in place. And so that is my request of the Traffic Commission today, is that we basically enforce the 85 feet as it's outlined in the ordinance, and that we release one of those parking stalls. So essentially all you'd have to do is move the sign to put it in the appropriate place that measures 85 feet as opposed to 105 feet. So, and again, this is new information since Dave and I spoke. So, so Dave, I don't know if you have some thoughts on that, but I did take a roller and I measured it out, and 105 feet is the number that it came up to. And I did measure it twice.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if the measurement is what it is, and our sign north of Kellogg Street is in the wrong spot, by all means, it should be moved to the proper location. And if that means moving it and it adds another stall, then that's what it would be. I mean, I don't see any reason to make it any greater than it would, that stall or anything, because these numbers that were arrived at, the 85 and 70 feet that are in item 5, are engineered values based off of ASHRAE criteria for intersection sight distance. So we would support that being what is already existing in the proposed ordinances that we're moving forward for adoption at council.
Okay, so that, again, if we can just basically enforce what's here in the ordinance, I'm good. And then based on the conversation that Dave and I had earlier today, recognizing what future actions might look like, and I think we'll tackle that sometime. In my perspective, what that would allow us to do is essentially recover 2 of the 6 parking stalls lost. And I mean, and again, it may not seem like a lot, but in these downtown settings, 2 parking stalls can be very valuable with some of the businesses down here that have that in and out traffic. So that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you, Alder Johnson. So Dave, do you want to let us know how you want to handle these items 2 through 7 then, or?
Yeah, items 2 through 7 should move through as they did at the last meeting for approval. So in essence, basically we're approving items 2 through 7 relative to movement of the current sign. That's that we can take care of at a staff level. There's nothing that's really needed there's no, I guess, action or anything like that that needs to take place at the council level. More or less that as long as this is going to get approved as 85 feet at council, modify the sign to reflect 85 feet. But I can handle that at staff level, not a problem.
Does that
Okay,
mean
so
that,
items 2 through 7, do you want us to receive and place on file then if you're going to handle it at staff, or?
No, because they were actually pulled from the last common council meeting, so they need to get put back on the next. So the proper
Okay.
motion would be to approve items 2 through 7, and I believe Dan was calling or stating had something to say.
well, just a question, Dave. Do we need to approve number 5, or do we not need to include it if you're going to do it through staff?
Contrary, all of these need to be adopted. Just think back of, when we were at the last meeting, I was making a recommendation for all of them to come through the Alder Council, and he pulled these items for further discussion. And
Right.
and we're all back on the same page, so they should all be moving forward. Like I said, no action is required tonight by the commission for the simple fact of knowing that we have 85 feet that's moving forward to common council. That's what we are going to have established in the field.
Okay. Thank you.
So can we make a motion to approve items 2 through 7 then?
Yes.
I mean,
Okay, motion been made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion 2 7 carry. I think that pretty much takes care of our normal stuff tonight. Just under G, informational. Report by the traffic engineer on the resignation of Stephanie Berman Birmingham from the Traffic Bicycle Pedestrian Commission.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I normally don't put these on the agenda, but seeing how I received her resignation via email, and I believe that she had copied most of the, if not all the commissioners, but I just know in prior resignations that there usually was some sort of upfront knowledge that this was going to occur. Someone's bought a house and moving out of the area or whatever, and it was just kind of common knowledge that this was going to occur. But Stephanie's resignation came to me as I really know, and I believe the email had described her reasonings. But long story short, she moved out of the area. She moved to surgeon. I accepted that resignation and just wanted to put that out there that we will now, or I shouldn't say not will, we do already have that one vacancy. So if there are any qualified individuals that you think would serve well on this commission, by all means, have a discussion with them and feel free to forward their name over to the mayor's office, or better yet, have them express their interest. The mayor's responsible for appointments and they get approved by common councils. So that's all I had.
Thank you. Okay. Moving to item 2 then, discussion regarding in-person committee and board meetings. We've been doing Zoom, like this is the 3rd month now. Dave, I don't know, maybe you want to go in a little more depth. The city hall or the city building is opening, or city hall is opening back up, so meetings can now be held on site again. So I guess more how do we want to go forward as a group, as a traffic commission? I'm thinking that's kind of the conversation you want to have, Dave.
Yeah, well, I do want to throw in a few conditions that are being placed, so it's not really going to be business as normal. Today actually starts our phase 1 of coming back into City Hall. So today we actually saw more staff than we normally have, because we have been operating kind of as a skeleton crew here, not many, but we now have this phase in that we're working through where there's more people coming in. But they're also in, or as part of this, the order that we received was that committee members, commission members, board members can now attend in person these meetings at City Hall. The only stipulation on that is that these meetings are held in council chambers for the time being. So that would be different from our normal meeting room, obviously, which is 310. And I believe the reasoning behind that is because they're not opening up City Hall to the general public. It's just to, in essence, in this case, it would be commissioners. We're just opening it up to commissioners, and that people from the general public wouldn't be able to attend our meetings. Therefore, they are still going to be, if they want to, attend virtually. So that being said, I understand the reasons why going to council. So I guess I'm throwing it out there that I'm open to it. I mean, I literally had this information last week, and, we could have had that discussion about even tonight's meeting, having it that way. Is my thoughts, and I threw it by Matt, who agreed that it was probably too early. Just there's too many unknowns at this point in time. And I think we wanted to have a discussion with everybody. Because of these conditions, it's not going to be 310. You're not going to probably have the luxuries of the screens and all the great videos and imagery that I normally bring to all of these awesome items, right? Sorry. But anyway, so I guess just think of it like, I think we had it a little bit over a year ago. I think it was right around the election time. When there was alders and mayor elected, that we had a meeting in council chambers. So I just wanted to offer it out there that if we do meet, it's my, at least where things stand right now, it'd be similar to how we had that meeting a year ago in council chambers. So if everyone's open to that, I'm open to it. We can have our face. If the commissioners decide that you want to wait until things really are back to what I would call normal or new normal, and we're back into 310, that's the discussion I really wanted to have.
Does anybody else have any thoughts? Any other commissioners?
This makes it a lot easier for me. I also don't have to run to town all the time. Usually there's something going on, but not always.
Okay,
Either way is fine for me. I'm up for whatever.
all right. Alderman Stevens, your take?
I am ready to get back to City Hall, but we can still do Zoom.
Okay. Lieutenant?
I'm glad I'm not the tiebreaker. Either way is
Brad,
fine.
your thoughts?
I'm content doing it either way. This works out fine. I'm in my office right now anyway, so I can come down the block. Occasionally, I have done it from home. So I'm willing to do either or, but I think the traditional way is probably a little more user-friendly.
Dan, you'd like to
I have a
comment?
question.
I can go either way, but what about a middle ground of doing some more month?
I think anything's in the conversation at this point. It's just kind of Dave has made us aware that, we can start having our meetings at City Hall when we're ready for it. I mean, we don't necessarily need to, we can decide as a group what's most comfortable. I mean, if we can like to have majority kind of what their take is. I'm indifferent. The other part of the conversation, Dave, would we go to, what time, if we had it at City Hall, what time would the meeting be? Would we be at 4:00 or would we be back to 5:30?
That's a great question. As it sits right now, last meeting, we motioned for the next two meetings to take place at 4. So unless we decide otherwise, it would be at 4. I think that's a great question to have. Yeah, I think that, I'll be honest with you, I think there's kind of some unknowns at this point in time. So if I had to make a decision one way or the other, I'd say let's keep it virtual for one more month. Two reasons. Number one, the unknown, which I just explained. Number two, I think it's much more conducive to meeting exchange of information that the public come in on the meetings, but rather they can come in attendance. We have the traditional fill out the form if you want to talk. I just think that that's probably a more useful exchange of ideas than Zoom, because I think Zoom with its technology is awesome, but there are latency issues. And obviously, like we had earlier on, even today, we had almost a 10-minute delay in start because there oftentimes can be technical difficulties. So I would say let's just, and again, just my recommendation is I would just stick with what we have for one more month. And then, I can put this identical item back on. I'll probably have more information on what phase 2 is going to look like in 1 month. And I think we could probably have a more fruitful discussion and probably have a more educated decision.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Dave. Let's put on Zoom for the July meeting, and maybe have this agenda item on. I don't know if we want to vote or if we can just kind of agree the way it is. I do kind of agree that it's kind of difficult for the general public to get involved in our meetings right now, and some of the meetings we get a pretty good turnout for people that want to speak. So I think long term, I think we should get back to meeting at City Hall when the time is appropriate. But I think, like you said, for next month, let's plan on Zoom for July and go from there and maybe have discussion in July and see what all the commissioners and lieutenants and alders think about it. So
Good.
In the meantime, I see Alderman Galvin is in our meeting now. We went to your item already. I don't know. We voted in agreement with it. So I don't know if you had any comments at this point, Alderman Galvin, or
Was that to lift the 4-hour restriction on
by
cash?
St. Mary's of the Angel School?
Yeah, so it'll go into a 90-day trial period and see what happens from there.
Correct. Yes. What the actual 4-hour zone, since I didn't know what limits you really wanted, I didn't know if you wanted to preserve any of the 4. The 4 hours, basically that entire block in the south side of Cass between Roosevelt and Irwin. So without that knowledge, I just said, let's just remove all of the 4 hour because once you get west of Roosevelt, it's permit parking and you're a little bit closer to the hospital. But so I just say, well, the motion actually was to remove all of that 4 hour for the entire block south side. So I'm assuming that's what you wanted.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I apologize. I'm having some problems with our AT&T internet here, and it's affecting our phone, so I couldn't even get in on the phone part of it. So I apologize, and I appreciate you folks taking the time to push that forward.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
No problem then. So, all right. If we got everything covered, I think, Dave, for this month, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn then.
So moved.
Okay. Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned until July. Take care.